Hey, today I'm going to comment on a video called Jillian Michaels Rant and Rave on Keto. So I didn't make that title up, that was actually the official title where she was being interviewed. And I think everyone is entitled to their opinion, but I think it can be dangerous when someone's opinion, just because they're a celebrity, gets taken as truth in a different context. So she is an expert at fitness, but she is not an expert at health and physiology. So let's go through some of these statements. The first thing she said was that keto was a fad or a trend. But just because keto has gained a lot of popularity recently doesn't mean it's a new thing. Keto, the production of ketosis, is a mechanism in the body that has been around for as long as we have been around. And why is that? Well, your body has two sources of fuel, primarily fat and carbohydrate. When plant food is plentiful, we burn a mixture of carbohydrate and fat, but when there's not so many plants around, then we are short on carbohydrate and we have to rely more on fat. And in an extreme shortage of carbohydrate, the body has to rely entirely on fat, and now a side product, a byproduct of that is called ketones. So your DNA has been around in its current form around 250,000 years, and your ancestors had that same DNA. So when they had plenty of food, they burned a mix, but when food was short, they went into ketosis. And it wouldn't be too bold to assume that they were in ketosis hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times in their lifetime. They were probably in ketosis most of the winter months, just like the Inuit or the Eskimos today are in ketosis most of their lifetime because there's very, very few plants where they live. So humans have the ability to use multiple fuels, and ketosis is just a result of us having less carbs and more fat for fuel. Then she went on to call keto an emergency. And that's kind of interesting because in a sense it is. That when we had starvation, when we didn't have a whole lot of food, the body has to rely on ketosis. That doesn't make it a bad thing because it's so common that when our ancestors didn't have a whole lot of food, like we said, they went into starvation. That was their way of surviving. However, it's a very natural form of emergency, and your body sort of likes certain emergencies. Every culture on the planet has promoted the benefits of fasting when you go into ketosis, right? One emergency that's not much talked about is the emergency of high or low blood sugar, however. High blood sugar in diabetes leads to coma. Low blood sugar in diabetes leads to coma. So when you eat a carbohydrate and your blood sugar spikes, that is an emergency. And that's an emergency that your body has no defense against except insulin. And if you do it repeatedly, then you develop insulin resistance, which is responsible for the majority of all degenerative disease. So if you want to talk about an emergency, then talk about the emergency of blood sugar fluctuations as a result of carbohydrate consumption. That's the real emergency. Your ancestors never saw that because there was never enough carbohydrate around to develop insulin resistant and unstable blood sugar. They experienced a lot of ketosis, which is a much more common, much more natural emergency. So emergencies are not necessarily bad. Exercise is a form of emergency. All stress is a little bit of an emergency. But the carbohydrate emergency is one that your genome, your DNA has never seen because your ancestors never encountered it. Then she said that your cells, your macromolecules, the stuff your cells are made up of, is protein, fat, carbs, and nucleic acid. And when you don't eat those on a regular basis, like all the time, then you are starving your cells and your body. And this is just incorrect because proteins make up your muscles, fats make up your brain, nucleic acids make up your DNA, the blueprint of how to build new cells. But carbohydrates are not a structural component. There is no essential carbohydrate. There is nothing in your body that's built of carbohydrate. Your cells are not made of carbohydrates. So that is not at all a good reason to promote that you have to have a mix of all the basic macronutrients. Then she admits that keto does indeed help you burn fat and lose weight. It helps reverse diabetes. It helps reverse PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it even helps increase fertility. And she sort of brushes that off as if those are just minor things compared to the major drawbacks, which we'll go over in a second. But think about the fertility for a second. Your body is not stupid. It knows when it's appropriate to do things and when it's not. And if it decides that it's a good time for you to have a baby, if it increases your ability to have a baby, it is not because you're getting sicker. The only way that you would increase your fertility is if you are getting healthier. So indirectly, she does admit that keto is actually making you healthier. But then she talks about the dangers, and she rattles off all these different reasons, and there's some big words here, and don't worry about that. I'll make some sense of it. But basically, every one of these is backwards. So she says that keto is a zero-calorie restriction diet. She talks about that as if it's a problem that, oh, in this diet, you don't have to restrict calories. And because of that, she assumes that you're eating more, because if you eat more, it leads to more oxidative stress, massive oxidative stress. So what is oxidative stress? Where does oxidation come from? Oxidation is when you oxidize, when you burn food for energy. When you convert food to energy, you're oxidizing it. So what she's saying here is that because there is no restriction of calories, then you're creating more oxidation. So she's saying that you're eating more because there is no restriction. What she fails to understand, and if she talked to someone who did keto, she probably would understand that a little better, is that you actually end up eating less because it is satisfying, because you don't have the constant blood sugar fluctuations. Now you end up eating fewer meals and less food overall. So if anything, your oxidative stress would go down. Then she says that there is no timing, and because of there's no timing to the food intake, probably meaning regular meals 3 times a day plus snacks, then autophagy is out of whack. So I'm not sure what she means by that, but autophagy is a self-cleaning. It's a healthy process in the body. It cleans up old junk. It cleans up cell debris. It's even been implicated in fighting cancer, because part of what it cleans up is cancer cells. And that only kicks in. Autophagy only kicks in when you're starving, because then the body gets better at recycling precious materials. So autophagy increases during long-term ketosis, during long-term fasting. So if anything, again, autophagy is improved by ketosis. It doesn't get out of whack. She says it's high in saturated fats, and therefore it's bad for the telomeres because of oxidative stress and inflammation. And telomeres are a marker of longevity. So they are important, but saturated fat do not increase oxidative stress or inflammation. They're a very clean food because saturated fat, when it's saturated, it's stable. And it doesn't get oxidized until it's in the body. That's a good thing. It doesn't get oxidized by the oxygen outside. It only gets oxidized in your body with enzymes. So it's a very clean, very stable fuel. And it does not increase oxidative stress or inflammation. What increases inflammation is sugar and inflammatory grains, especially the allergenic foods like modern wheat, is highly inflammatory. Insulin itself, even if you ate sugar that wasn't inflammatory, the insulin itself is inflammatory. So again, completely backwards to the argument she's presenting. And then she says the nutrient sensing pathways related to the health of your metabolism are overrun by constant food. So she says you can't regulate your hunger anymore because you're not eating on a regular basis. And again, the exact opposite is true, because you don't get so hungry because your body gets what it needs, so you learn to regulate your hunger. It improves your ability to sense when you're full. It's the carbohydrates that have drug-like effects that puts this nutrient sensing pathways out of commission and messes with your metabolism. And then she says that your body is overrun by constant food. And I take that to mean that you would eat a lot frequently. But again, if you talk to anyone who does keto, then you know that you eat less and less frequently. So there would be less of an overrun on your system. It would have more of an opportunity to recover. The best point she had, the closest to correct, is that she said exercise is the number one method of reversing insulin resistance. And that's almost true. It is the second best. The number one best method is to be in ketosis, because that's how the insulin goes really, really, really low when you have really low carbohydrate. But exercise is the second most powerful way to reverse insulin resistance. And that's not the only benefit. So we have to remember that exercise is a part of any healthy regime. And you're not doing keto to lose weight, you're doing it to get healthy. When you get healthy, the weight comes off. It's not the other way around. And as part of getting healthy, exercise is essential. It reverses insulin resistance, it stimulates your brain, it keeps your brain alive, and it improves circulation, which is crucial for detoxification. So don't forget exercise. Then finally, she had, actually in another interview, but it's the same stuff, she said 2 + 2 is equal to 4, meaning that calories in, calories out. You can't cheat that equation. It's a simple energy equation. It's simple science. That's just the way it works. If you're going to lose weight, you have to restrict calories. That was her point. But then she admits that on keto, it burns fat, so you lose weight. So somehow you're burning more calories. But then she also says down in here that the keto diet is dangerous because it has no calorie restriction, meaning you eat more, because the only way you can increase your oxidative stress is if you eat more. If your oxidation increases, then it's because you're using more oxygen to convert food into energy, so that must mean that you eat more. So somehow, she says, you eat more, and yet you manage to burn extra calories off your body, and 2 + 2 is 4. So these statements cannot all be correct. Okay, they're very contradictory. So these are just loosely assembled statements and opinion that have no foundation in physiology or clinical science. So again, I have nothing against anyone who voices their opinions, but I think it's very, very unfortunate when someone gets a lot of coverage because they're a celebrity and because they have some skills and some expertise in one area. People assume that it sort of extends into another area. And this can hurt people. And a lot of people are learning how to reduce insulin resistance and how to get healthy. And we want to help people understand how it really works, so that Once you understand it, then you can watch a video like Jillian's and you know, okay, that's incorrect, that's not how it works, etc. Because that's the only way that you're going to be able to stand up against all the actual fads and trends that are buzzing around. Share this video with everyone you care about, leave me some comments, and thanks for watching.